April 1945. The Red Army are closing in on Berlin. And Allied forces have now crossed the Rhine and advanced into the heart of Nazi Germany. The final and humiliating chapter for the Third Reich has begun. Germany is at the point of defeat. Once revered by millions, Hitler and his ever-decreasing band of henchmen cower in a reeking bunker, surrounded by enemy troops. Adolf Hitler, now a drug-addled physical wreck, has retreated to his subterranean fortress beneath the Reich Chancellery Gardens. Of the original circle, only Martin Bormann, Hitler's private secretary, and Joseph Goebbels, propaganda minister, are with Hitler in this nightmarish underground world. But today is an important date in the Third Reich's calendar, the Führer's 56th birthday, and they're expecting visitors. SS Chief Heinrich Himmler has been one of Hitler's most loyal followers. But for the past few months, he's been steering clear of the underground madness, residing in a sanatorium 100 kilometers north of Berlin. Whilst there, Himmler has been trying to make deals with the Allies. He wants to be the man to take over Germany once the inevitable happens. Despite his treasonous acts, Himmler still leaves the haven of the sanatorium to visit Hitler. The journey to bombed-out Berlin involves a dangerous 100-kilometer road trip. Hitler's birthday gift from the Soviets is an artillery barrage right into the heart of the city. And it's not just the enemy he has to watch out for. His own organization, the SS, are assassinating deserters. Even for the SS boss, in these dangerous times, it's important to turn up and give the illusion of allegiance. Traveling by road is perilous, but by air, it's positively suicidal. Nevertheless, Minister of Armaments Albert Speer risks the treacherous flight into Berlin. Speer's motivations for taking the risky flight into Berlin are also puzzling. According to his memoirs, months earlier, he had been scheming to assassinate Hitler. His plan, he'd later claim, was to infuse the bunker with poison gas. But a newly fitted chimney, installed as an anti-gas precaution, had thwarted the idea. Whatever the truth, Speer knows defeat is close. So why head to Berlin? Could Speer be harboring some secret, lofty ambitions? Heart of the kingdom is what was once the most prestigious building in the Nazi state, the Reich Chancellery. Now, it's a desolate, bombed-out shell. An apt setting for the inner circle to gather and pour their ritual congratulations to the deranged dictator on his birthday. Having survived their perilous journeys, for the inner circle there is now an awkward wait for their Führer to make his appearance. 8 meters down below, in the impregnable bunker, Hitler is going about his daily ritual. Another key player in the inner circle who thinks traveling to Berlin is worth the danger is head of the Luftwaffe, Hermann Göring. For the last 4 months, the man who joined the Nazi Party as a poster boy war hero has been making plans for life after the Führer. Hitler finally makes his entrance. He's joined by the hidden First Lady of the Third Reich, his mistress, Eva Braun. Although they've been together for the past 12 years, the Nazis maintain the illusion of Hitler as single, devoted only to the German nation. To the inner circle, the sight of the Führer with his mistress is an indication that for Hitler, the end is near. More alarming still is his physical state. As always, Martin Bormann, Hitler's private secretary and permanent shadow, is close by when the Führer makes a momentous announcement. Hitler will stay in Berlin and, if necessary, die in the bunker. For Bormann, news that the Führer will stay in the bunker is devastating. He was hoping the Nazi leadership would relocate to the Berghof, Hitler's mountain retreat. A decade earlier, Bormann had overseen its construction, including a network of impenetrable bunkers deep beneath the Alps, designed to keep the Führer and Bormann out of harm's way. But it's not to be. Bormann's plan is, for now, foiled. But Goering watches with interest. He interprets Hitler's statement as a resignation and his opportunity to take control of the leadership. Goering, though, has no qualms about fleeing. In fact, he's long been preparing for it. His servants have already evacuated his acquired spoils of war, some 5,000 works of art. That morning, Goering's country residence, Karenhall, had been rigged with 20 tons of explosives. If he can't enjoy the grandiose estate, it must be destroyed. The once fiercely loyal SS chief Heinrich Himmler feels he's been seen to toe the party line. Now he can join Goering in making a tactful departure and get back to his own escape plan. On leaving the party, Goering corners Himmler. But Himmler is well ahead of the game. 5 days earlier, he had released 1,200 Jews to the Allies. Bargaining chips in a deal fostered at his sanatorium by passing messages to the Red Cross via his masseur. Himmler tells Goering he's beaten him to it, and that he's due to meet Count Foch Bernadotte, Vice President of the Swedish Red Cross, that night. Himmler says Bernadotte has been sent to negotiate by Eisenhower. But Himmler suddenly becomes aware they're being watched, and by the most dangerous of rivals, Martin Bormann. The sycophant Bormann had risen to power by ruthless manipulation and by dripping poison into Hitler's ear. Himmler knows that if Bormann has overheard them, his days could be numbered. Himmler knows he must act fast. He drives through the night to the Baltic coast for 2 important meetings. The first, with a representative of the World Jewish Congress. By this point, the death toll of Jews is reaching 6 million, all masterminded by Himmler. But months earlier, he'd been trying to cover his tracks. But there's no way Himmler could distance himself from the atrocities entirely. His rebrand to become the person to rule Germany post-Third Reich relies on these meetings between men of radically opposing ideologies. For 45 minutes, Himmler gives a long-winded justification of Germany's actions against the Jews. He promises that the killings would stop and that the camps would be handed over intact to the Allies. By Himmler's second meeting that evening with the Swedish diplomat Count Bernadotte, he is becoming increasingly paranoid. Exhausted, Himmler leaves, believing he's one step closer to meeting Eisenhower. But his fear remains. Could he have been followed? Does Bormann know? One thing is certain, Himmler is playing a very dangerous game. The next day in the Führer bunker, at Hitler's daily conference, his generals give a report on the military situation. Goebbels, who has been loyal since the beginning, is devastated. There is no future without Hitler, for himself or his family. The last escape routes are disappearing, and the Red Army is on the approach. Cyanide capsules are distributed to all Hitler's staff. Bormann has a sudden realization that he is expected to die for the cause. For now, Bormann is trapped. He can only dream of the Nazi stronghold he'd built in the Alps years earlier. But Göring is already enjoying the fresh mountain air. He's heard the news of Hitler's acceptance of defeat, and despite Himmler's plan, Göring decides he'll make his play for the top job. But until Hitler is dead, it's a very dangerous move. He carefully dictates a tactful message to Hitler, requesting authorization to take over as successor. As is usual protocol, Bormann is the first to take receipt of the telegram from Göring. Bormann steers Hitler into seeing the telegram as an act of appalling treachery. And Bormann goes further. He fires off a message to Göring saying, "I forbid you to take any steps in the direction you have indicated. Signed, Adolf Hitler." But Göring's resignation is not enough for Bormann. He orders Göring's arrest and execution. Luck is on Göring's side, and he lives to fight another day. Another target in Bormann's sights is Heinrich Himmler. Since his covert meetings to try to make peace with the Allies, Himmler has been nervously awaiting a response. He can only hope that his act of treason remains secret. Bormann has been sniffing around, but he can't find anything conclusive to pin on Himmler. But then the Allies come to Bormann's aid. News of Himmler's clandestine deals is broadcast to the world. Himmler's secret is out, and he knows exactly what this will mean to Hitler. And with encouragement from Bormann, the Führer strips Himmler of all his offices and orders his arrest. To Hitler, Himmler's is the ultimate betrayal. In a matter of days, Bormann has struck off his two arch-rivals, Hitler's number 2, Hermann Göring, and SS chief Heinrich Himmler. It's a hollow victory, as the whole regime is clearly now defunct. But in Bormann's mind, he's finally made it. Now, amid the underground lunacy, Hitler turns his attention to the utterly pointless task of finding a new successor on his rapidly sinking Nazi ship. And these two men, Silent Shadow Bormann and ever-loyal Goebbels, are the only two candidates from Hitler's inner circle left in the bunker. But Hitler chooses neither. Dönitz is nowhere near the bunker. He's in the far north of Germany in the port of Flensburg. Dönitz had gained Hitler's trust, partly because he delivered on a promise of a revolution at sea, achieved by new U-boats that could remain submerged for long periods. Since the start of 1945, the two men had grown close. For what it's worth, Goebbels is given the cursory title of Reich Chancellor of Germany, while Bormann is made head of what's left of the Nazi Party. To him, it's a great honor. He knows his power has always relied on staying close to Hitler. For Bormann, there's no way out. Goebbels' loyalty is more fanatical. For him, there's no future without the Führer. So great is his devotion to Hitler, he brings his wife Magda into the bunker. There is one other hidden but equally devoted member of Hitler's inner circle still in the bunker. His companion for the last 12 years, and one of the most successfully guarded secrets of Nazi Germany. They had met in Munich when Eva was just 17, and assistant to Hitler's official photographer. Now, after more than a decade of clandestine courtship, she's finally going to get her man. Above ground, and unaware of the subterranean drama in the bunker, the people of Berlin are living with the effects of the debauched regime. Suffering is on a terrible scale. Most are close to starving, and all are living in constant danger. Everyone desperately wants peace. People have started destroying evidence of any link to the Nazis. Photographs of loved ones in army uniform are torn up. The core of remaining Nazis have now been in the bunker for 3 months, and discipline is waning. The remaining SS officers are permanently drunk, and along with the bunker's women, determined to make the most of their last hours. The Soviets are now only a kilometer away. For those in the bunker, time is running out. That day, news from Milan reaches the bunker. Hitler's fellow fascist and one-time ally, Benito Mussolini, has been captured by Italian partisans. Hitler and his new wife Eva retreat to their sitting room with cyanide capsules and a pistol. Given the public display of Mussolini's corpse, the first task for Bormann is to dispose of Hitler and Eva's bodies. Now Hitler and Eva are mere embers. There's an even more daunting task: to inform the world. Goebbels, the man tasked with party communications for the last decade, remains tight-lipped. This delay will give him and Bormann a final opportunity for a negotiated surrender to the Red Army, without consulting the new head of state, Dönitz. But for Goebbels, the new Reich Chancellor, his only attempt at international negotiation ends in abject failure. It's not until 10:53 a.m. the following day that Bormann eventually telegrams Dönitz, and the news soon spreads. Hitler has killed himself, and his last testament is in force. The news quickly reaches Hitler's former friend, Armaments Minister Albert Speer. For Bormann, Hitler's death has broken no spell, but it has loosened his grip on power. His telegram was an attempt to keep hold of it. But it does give Bormann a reason to escape the bunker. For the deeply fanatical Goebbels and his wife Magda, escape doesn't even enter their minds. There is only one thing left to do. They'll follow Hitler to the last. But first, they need to deal with the children. Magda has her children sedated, and she poisons them with cyanide. An hour after poisoning her children, Magda is seen playing cards, pale, red-eyed, stony-faced, and smoking endlessly. Later that evening, Magda bites into her cyanide capsule, and Goebbels delivers the coup de grace, shooting her in the back of the head. Then he bites on his own capsule and shoots himself in the temple. SS guards douse the bodies in petrol, but there isn't enough left to set fire to them properly. With everyone else either fled or dead, the inner circle now consists of one man, Martin Bormann. For decades, he has snooped, manipulated, and done whatever it takes to increase his power. The reality is, Bormann is head of a party that no longer exists. Any power he had went up in smoke, along with Hitler's corpse. The only way to regain it is to make the 400-kilometer trip to Dönitz in Flensburg. Bormann packs Hitler's last will and testament in his briefcase. If he's going to make it to Flensburg, first he'll need to get through the Russian lines. 5 days later, there is total and unconditional surrender. As for Martin Bormann, he didn't make it anywhere near Dönitz headquarters. After stumbling out of the bunker in the early hours, eyewitnesses claim Bormann was terrified, silent, and disorientated. It's thought that at the sight of approaching Soviet troops, he had taken his own life. Three weeks later, as the Allies occupy Germany, Heinrich Himmler is on the run. In May 1945, Himmler is finally captured by the British in northern Germany. But during a medical examination, he bites down on a cyanide capsule. The cowardly murderer of millions takes the easy way out. Hermann Göring, the flamboyant former fighter ace, has also been captured by the Allies. Göring is imprisoned at a converted luxury hotel. With characteristic arrogance, he still believes he can talk his way out of trouble. But Göring is mistaken. Six months later, the Nuremberg trials begin. They will last almost a year. Sat beside Göring is his one-time inner circle colleague, former Deputy Führer and Hitler disciple, Rudolf Hess. Hess had been jailed in Britain ever since he'd flown to Scotland 4 years earlier on a crazed solo mission to try to make peace with Britain. Now reunited with Göring, their day of reckoning has arrived. Ever the showman, Hermann Göring confidently denies any knowledge of what went on in Nazi concentration camps.
Bekenne mich im Sinne der Anklage nicht schuldig.
He paints himself as a peaceful diplomat and insists everything they'd done was the result of their patriotism. Despite his spirited performance, Göring is sentenced to death for war crimes. But just 2 hours before his sentence is carried out, a phial of cyanide, thought to be smuggled in by a guard, allows him to escape the hangman's noose. Albert Speer denies knowledge of the Holocaust and denounces the crimes of Hitler and the Nazi regime. He's jailed for 20 years, and when released, paints himself as the good Nazi. Only after his death at the age of 76 does the truth come out. The last man alive is Rudolf Hess. Serving a life sentence in Spandau, Berlin, in 1987, at the age of 93, he hangs himself in the prison garden summer house. Hitler's inner circle had been forged in the ashes of the First World War. Misfits and war heroes, united by a sense of betrayal. A twisted ideology, and a thirst for revenge. Determined and cunning, they had capitalized on their nation's discontent and deceived their countrymen to rise to positions of ultimate power. But personal ambition and jealousy had seen them turn on each other in bloody betrayal. It was a regime in which all power derived from one man. In the end, the only legacy of Adolf Hitler's inner circle is the terrible knowledge of how a few twisted individuals could plunge the world into conflict, and of the horror that human beings can inflict on their fellow man.